7:12 a.m. 4 knocks. Hard. Sharp. I hadn't even put my coffee on yet. The sun wasn't fully up, and already the day had shifted into something I didn't ask for. Then the phone rang. I didn't want to answer it. But I did. "Your crazy mother won't let us in." Rima's voice sliced through the speaker. No hello, no good morning, just accusation and volume. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I looked through the upstairs window tucked just behind the curtain. And there they were. Rima, Hugo, and the kids. 4 of them lined up like luggage. Pajamas, tangled hair, a sippy cup on the porch step. 2 large suitcases and a stack of plastic bags. No car in sight, which meant they planned to stay. They hadn't called last night. No warning. No "how are you feeling?" They knew I was still recovering. I'd made it clear. Twice. In writing and in my voice memo. But there they stood, acting like the victims, waiting for the mother, the grandmother, the crazy one, to open the door. My heart pounded in my chest, not from fear, but from fury I didn't yet know how to shape. I gripped the banister. I steadied my cane. The porch camera caught Rima pacing, waving her arms, gesturing to the kids like she was telling a story. Hugo just stood there, mouth tight, eyes down. I turned down the volume. I'd seen enough. Downstairs, my kitchen was still quiet. A folded dish towel by the sink. My coffee mug sitting empty by the machine. I'd planned to make pancakes, for myself. To sit at the small table and read for an hour, uninterrupted. Instead, I stood still for a moment longer, listening to Rima raise her voice again, to someone on speaker. She knew we were coming. No, I didn't. But I knew now they were here for themselves. Not for me. Never for me. I filled the kettle with water and placed it on the stove. The knocks kept coming. But they weren't mine to answer. Tomorrow, they'd say I overreacted, that I should have let them in, that it wasn't a big deal. But today I picked up my mug and reached for the jar of coffee grounds. 3 weeks ago, I sat on this same couch, wrapped in a blanket, still shaky from anesthesia. My gallbladder had been removed 2 days earlier. They'd warned me recovery wouldn't be easy at my age. They were right. Every step hurt. Every breath pulled something. I'd recorded the voice memo in one long, careful breath because even talking wore me out back then. "Hugo," I had said, pausing between sentences. "I'm home now. The surgery went fine, but I'm not moving around much. I'll need at least a month of real rest. No guests, no pickups, no favors. I just need space for a while." He replied 10 minutes later. A text. "Of course, Mom. Rest easy. No questions, no offers, no real concern." Rima didn't respond, but the message showed read. I remember watching the notification pop up. I waited foolishly for a follow-up, some acknowledgement. Nothing came. A week later, I sent a second message. Shorter. "Just a reminder I won't be available to help this month. Hope the kids are enjoying their break." That one went completely ignored. I took the hint. So did my body. I stopped trying. They knew I was down, knew I was alone. And now they stood on my steps like I'd been counting the days until I could cook and clean for 6 people again. I glanced out the front window once more. Rima was now sitting on the top step, holding her phone up like she was filming something. The kids were restless. One tugged at Hugo's pant leg. Another lay down across the suitcase. I didn't feel pity. I felt watched, cornered. They weren't stranded. They were staging something. I opened my phone, scrolled to the message thread with Hugo, and read it again. "Rest easy." "Then why didn't you?" I locked the screen and turned the kettle off just before it boiled. The last thing I needed was more noise. Not when I already knew this wasn't about miscommunication. It was about disregard, about walking over the line and expecting me to pretend it wasn't drawn. And I had drawn it. The next morning, I made it permanent. It was Carla who told me. She didn't mean to stir anything. She was just out for her evening walk holding that ridiculous orange leash attached to her yappy terrier. I was watering the potted fern near my porch, pretending I still had energy for small chores. She stopped to chat like she always does, and tilted her head toward me. "Hey, saw your son's house got some new folks in it. Young couple. Beach chairs, wine crates, real summery vibe. They Airbnb-ing again?" I froze. "Beach chairs?" I asked. She nodded. "Moved in yesterday afternoon. Big white SUV Washington plates." You didn't know I shook my head, but I smiled, like it wasn't news that sliced something open in my chest. I waited for her to walk off before I went inside, set the watering can down, closed the door. Then I stood in the entryway staring at the front door, my hand hovering over the deadbolt. They didn't just show up. They didn't forget to plan. They had a plan. This was the plan. Rent their house for 2 months. Pocket the money. Send the kids to me. No sitter costs no food bills, no chaos on their dime. Just dump everything onto me and call it family. They'd done it before. Not this blatantly, but enough times. When Rima wanted to reset her energy, I kept the kids for 9 straight days. When Hugo took that conference in Denver, I rearranged a dentist appointment I'd waited 6 months for, just to cover his gap. It wasn't new, but it was always painted as last minute. Emergency. Unavoidable. Now I saw it clearly. It was never last minute. It was premeditated. And I had been too tired, too loyal, too afraid of being called difficult to ever name it for what it was. Not this time. I walked away from the front door and down the hall. The kids were still outside tugging at each other. Rima was now sitting with her arms crossed, scrolling her phone like she was the one being inconvenienced. I opened the drawer in the hall. Not for them, for me. It was a Friday afternoon. I'd pushed through a headache and an aching hip just to make it out the door. The store was crowded and the bags felt heavier than usual, but I'd still filled them with the things they liked: eggs, milk, cereal bars, fruit snacks shaped like dinosaurs, not bears. Rima opened the door, took the bags from my hand without looking up, and walked straight to the kitchen. Next time, she said, sifting through the bag, "Get the kind the kids actually eat." That was it. No, thank you. No, "How are you healing?" Not even a glance to see if I was standing upright or wincing through the pinched nerve that had been bothering me for days. I sat on the edge of their couch while the kids ran past, not one of them stopping to say hello. Hugo was upstairs on a work call, apparently. Rima didn't offer me coffee or water. I watched her unpack the groceries in silence, acting like I'd sent a faulty delivery service. I left after 15 minutes. Told her I had a follow-up appointment, which was a lie. I just couldn't sit there any longer. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from pain, but from that whisper. They thought I didn't hear it. Rima on the phone, low voice in the hallway door cracked open. She should be grateful we even visit. Grateful. As if I hadn't cleaned up every mess they'd left behind for years. As if I hadn't held their babies when they had the flu, or packed their freezer when Hugo lost his job, or kept quiet when Rima's sister crashed in their basement for 6 months rent-free and left the place smelling like mildew and cologne. That word, grateful, sank into my chest like a nail. The next morning, I called Ray the locksmith I'd used years ago when my old shed had been broken into. He remembered me, asked if everything was okay, just updating things I said. He came that afternoon, changed every lock, and while he worked, I pulled the estate binder out from the hallway drawer. It still comes back in flashes that night. I was 2 weeks into recovery from pneumonia. Breathing was slow. My ribs still sore, a wheeze in my chest every time I shifted in bed. The doctor had told me no stress, no exertion, no guests. I'd pass that message on. But Rima didn't believe in boundaries. Not then, not now. I remember the bass first muffled through the walls, then the sound of high heels on hardwood laughter, too loud for a weeknight. I came out of the bedroom wrapped in a blanket, hair damp from the humidifier, and walked into my own living room full of strangers. They were drinking from my glassware. Someone had moved the furniture to make space for a folding table covered in pizza boxes and cheap wine. My orchid had been pushed into a corner, tilted sideways. Rima saw me and smiled like nothing was wrong. "It's just a few friends from work. We'll keep it down." I looked at Hugo, standing near the fireplace. He saw me, saw the sweat on my forehead, the shallow breath, but he said nothing. Not even a nod of apology. Just kept sipping his drink and looking away. Later that night, after the last person left and the dishwasher clanked shut, I asked him quietly in the kitchen, "Why didn't you say something?" Just one sentence. He rubbed the back of his neck like it inconvenienced him. The binder had been there for years. A sturdy black zip-up with tabbed dividers and laminated sheets, something I put together after Frank died, when I realized I didn't want to leave anyone guessing. It held everything: the deed, insurance, bank statements, will, medical directives. I opened it slowly, flipping past the sections I hadn't needed to look at in a while. My handwriting stared back at me, neat and steady. It felt strange reading my own words now that they were outdated. I found the tab labeled beneficiaries. Hugo's name was still there in pen. Rima's too listed as guardian to the funds for the kids. Back then, I thought I was doing the right thing, keeping it all in the family, keeping it simple. I'd believed that love, even tired love, meant safety. I pulled out the correction tape and began erasing. First Hugo, then Rima. Then the clause giving them access to manage the college fund. I replaced them with my niece Leora. She wasn't close, but she checked in once a month, sent cards. Never asked for anything but time. I removed Hugo's name from the medical power of attorney and replaced it with my neighbor Marta, who'd driven me to the hospital last February when the coughing wouldn't stop. Then I rewrote the final clause of the will. Just one sentence. Those who dishonor my boundaries do not inherit from them. No anger, no dramatics, just clarity. I didn't text Hugo, didn't email him, didn't hint at anything. If he noticed, it would be through the absence of access, of power, of entitlement. It felt quiet when I zipped the binder closed. Not triumphant, just clean. I placed it back in the drawer and locked it, not because I was afraid, but because I was done explaining the choices I had every right to make. Outside, I could still hear the muffled sound of Rima's voice through the porch. Her tone was sharper now. She was probably calling someone trying to build a story where she looked like the one being wronged. The neighborhood would hear it, so would I. Don't make drama around her. It's just a party, in a house I bought while I was sick and invisible. That was the night I started locking my bedroom door. I told myself it was just for peace of mind, but deep down, I knew something had cracked. A layer of safety I'd always offered had been scraped off. That was also the first time I thought about what it might look like to take my name off the emergency contacts, to start reclaiming things that had quietly been signed away without permission. I didn't do it then, but the thought lived. Now, years later, it was finally time to act. The binder sat open on the table beside me. By noon, it had become a spectacle. Rima's voice carried straight down the street. I didn't have to open the blinds to know it. She wanted it heard. That was the whole point. Your mother is literally crazy. We're out here with 4 kids. She changed the locks without telling us. Each sentence was louder than the last, as if volume could rewrite the facts. From the living room, I could hear the low crunch of strollers and sandals as neighbors passed by. They slowed, of course. They always do when they smell drama. A couple of them lingered near the sidewalk. One woman even crossed the street pretending to check her mailbox just to get a better look. One of the kids sat on the top step, tears streaming down her cheeks, nose running into her sleeve. No one wiped it. Rima was too busy pacing with her phone to her ear. The middle child had taken a piece of blue chalk and was drawing something erratic across my walkway, long smears that would take hours to hose off if I ever chose to care again. maybe I wouldn't. Rima called Hugo again, her voice thick with mock outrage. Tell her we're not leaving. As if that would change anything. I could picture him on the other end of the line, standing in a work hallway somewhere, too embarrassed to admit he knew this would happen, too weak to stop it, too practiced at letting Rima lead and then apologizing for the mess. I didn't open the door. I didn't peek through the curtains. I poured my second cup of coffee, stirred it slowly, and sat back down in the chair by the window where I couldn't be seen. The volume on my phone was off, but I saw the text come through. It was from Hugo. What are you doing, Mom? This looks insane. I let the message sit. Because I wasn't doing anything. That was the point. I opened my notebook and wrote one line at the top of a clean page. I warned them. They planned this. They wanted the performance. And I was letting them have it without me. The call came just after 9. I was still in the living room, lights low, coffee long gone. I let it ring twice before answering. Mom? What are you doing? Hugo's voice was tight, already defensive. You're embarrassing us. I didn't flinch. So did you when you lied? He exhaled sharply, like he didn't expect me to say it out loud. We just needed help. No. You needed me to disappear behind the help. To cook, to clean, to babysit for free in silence. There was a pause. I imagined him rubbing his temple like he always did when words didn't land the way he wanted. You're really not going to open the door. I stood up and walked to the front hallway. I looked at the deadbolt. I had opened that door too many times before. Opened it to excuses, to late-night drop-offs, to last-minute crises that weren't mine to solve. I did. For 40 years. I'm done now. He didn't respond right away. I could hear muffled noise in the background, kids fussing, Rima talking to someone else. Mom, you can't just cut us off. This is family. Then act like it. Another silence. Not a shocked one, just the kind where guilt doesn't know where to go. So, what happens now? He asked, like this was a standoff instead of a pattern breaking. You go home. You parent your kids. You stop using me as the plan B you never admit to making. He didn't argue, didn't agree, just hung up. I stood there a moment longer, hand still holding the phone to my ear, even after the line went dead. The silence didn't feel cold. It felt honest. I slid the phone into my robe pocket and walked back into the kitchen. I rinsed out my mug and placed it upside down on the drying rack. Then I opened the drawer where the financial statements were kept and pulled out the tuition paperwork. The last thing they assumed I'd always cover. The email came in the morning subject line, cold and factual notice of financial reallocation, Maplewood Academy. I didn't even have to open it to know what it was. But I did, just to make it final. We are writing to confirm that the scholarship previously applied to Colin Thatcher for the upcoming academic year has been withdrawn per the updated account directive received on file. I closed the tab. 2 hours later, my phone lit up. Rima. I let it ring almost to the end, then answered. You said you'd cover it, she snapped. No greeting. No attempt at pretending this was anything but transactional. I did, I said calmly, until you turned me into staff. Don't make this about pride. You're punishing the kids. No, I'm protecting myself. You should try it sometime. She scoffed, like she'd just been insulted by someone beneath her. You're being spiteful, and you're being exposed. There's a difference. I could hear her pacing, one of the kids crying in the background. Do you know how hard this makes everything she said? I do. That's why I didn't want to be part of it. It's not fair to take it out on them. I almost laughed. And it was fair to rent out your house and dump them on my porch like a summer camp? You didn't ask. You assumed. That's the difference. She didn't answer. Not right away. That's the part that always hits people hardest the moment you stop defending the silence they expected from you. I waited 3 full seconds, then hung up. Not with a bang, just a clean click, No follow-up. No let me know if you change your mind. That door had already closed. Locked. Sealed with a deadbolt of their own choices. I stood by the table where the binder still sat. I slid the tuition folder back into its sleeve and zipped it shut. Then I reached for the second envelope. The one with the house deed addendum. The part no one remembered I still had control over. 3 days passed. No calls, no knocks, not even a passive-aggressive text. The silence wasn't heavy. It was clean, like the air after rain when everything unnecessary has been rinsed away. I sat in my armchair by the window, the morning light creeping in through the curtains. 1 cup of coffee rested beside me, strong black, just how I liked it, now that no one was around to wrinkle their nose at the bitterness. Across the room, the binder still sat on the table. I'd left it open on purpose, half finished, like a conversation I was finally ready to complete. I reached for the envelope tucked inside the front pocket. Thick paper. Sealed. Inside was a deed addendum I'd drawn up the day after Hugo hung up. I hadn't told anyone I still had the authority. They assumed the house had already been passed down, another thing they believed belonged to them just because I hadn't taken it off the table yet. I unfolded the paper and read it once more. Effective. Immediately, this property is not to be transferred, loaned, or otherwise leveraged in favor of any party who has previously demonstrated disregard for the homeowner's stated boundaries, medical status, or autonomy. Underneath, I'd written a line in my own handwriting. Not legal, just true. This home is no longer available to those who see me as a service. I placed the envelope inside the binder, zipped it shut, and carried it back to the hallway drawer. As the metal lock clicked closed, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, relief that didn't require anyone's permission. No more pretending, no more performances, no more trading pieces of myself to stay loved. The coffee was still warm when I returned to my chair. Outside, a delivery truck passed. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Ordinary sounds. No drama. I picked up my book and turned to the page I'd marked days ago but hadn't yet found the quiet to finish. This time, I read slowly, and I understood every word.